think this is our 5th annual State of the Village, and in this format. We've done it different ways, and we're very excited that everybody's here. Thank you all for coming. I'm going to invite Ann Yoshida to come and get us going. Where is Ann? Oh, there you are. Ann is the co-president of the League of Women Voters. Thank you, Ann.
Good morning, everybody.
Good morning.
We all want to welcome you to this year's State of the Village address. I'm Ann Yoshida, and along with Sherry Latash, we are co-presidents of the Glenview-Glencoe League of Women Voters. For many years, the League of Women Voters hosted a State of the Village dinner, an event which was organized to give citizens a chance to meet with their village president, to hear what he or she had to say about current issues and challenges and successes in Glenview. And so we are honored and delighted that we now co-host this forum with the Glenview Chamber and the Glenview Values Project, and we are grateful that Wintrust Bank is the sponsor of today's program. And our thanks go to Betsy Baer and Karen Patterson for their hard work in organizing this event. It is election season, in case you didn't know. The League has co-sponsored several candidate forums. We've held mock elections at GBS and GBN where over 1,100 students voted. We've registered people to vote at 18 different locations in the last 4 months. This Tuesday, Americans who have not already done so will go to the polls and they will exercise their right to vote. Election Day is a day that we in the League of Women Voters regard with some reverence because it's a chance for each citizen to make their voices heard. Citizen participation is vital at every level of democracy, none more so than at the local level, where our daily lives are affected by the decisions that local government officials make. Here in Glenview, the League, a nonpartisan civic organization that will be 100 years old next year, pays close attention to the workings of our local government. Our members regularly observe meetings of Glenview boards and commissions, and they come away with information and with a respect for the work that their fellow citizens put in as commissioners and board members. The League applauds President Patterson and the village for their efforts to make the local workings of our government transparent and open to the citizens of this community. Events like this one today allow people to ask questions and learn about the issues which affect our town. It's also an opportunity for Glenview officials and village staff to speak openly and in some detail about the challenges they face in meeting the needs of a diverse community. Meetings like this one help to chip away at cynicism and disengagement. Now, more than ever, we need to seek opportunities where conversations may take place and questions may be asked, even challenging ones, in an atmosphere of civility and mutual respect. And the League of Women Voters appreciates the chance to co-host a program like this one. And now I'd like to introduce Karen Patterson, President of the Glenview Chamber of Commerce.
Good morning. Thanks for coming out this morning. We're so happy to be here and see such a good turnout. It's so important for us to see what's going on in the village and be reminded why we live in this wonderful town. I always look forward to hearing Jim Patterson, who is not related to me, although we do share a love of Glenview. And then I would like to please ask the members of our Chamber of Commerce board to stand up. I'd like to recognize them and have everybody say hi to them. Anybody from the board? Thank you. Thanks for being here, guys. Jerry, sit down. And then anybody from the Glenview Values Project membership, I'd like to introduce them and have them stand up. Thank you. And I'd like to introduce Jeff Teleke. We go way back from junior high when it was still called Springwood Junior High. From Wintrust Mortgage, he's going to be speaking to us.
It does go back a ways, doesn't it? Kind of says something when you spend your time growing up here and you end up living here later in life. It's kind of another testament to this great place where we all live. So Betsy Baer wants to stay on target, on track, so and I'm afraid of her generally, so I'm going to move quickly here. I like to think, what's that? Of course, of course. I'd like to thank the Glenview Chamber of Commerce, the League of Women Voters, and the Glenview Vales Project for putting together this terrific event and allowing Wintrust Community Banks to return as a presenting sponsor. The State of the Village Address, I think, is one of the most meaningful events of the year, and I think it provides each of us a little bit of a renewed or refreshed perspective on how substantial and maybe complex the business of running this fine village is, and really how terrific it is to live and work right here in Glenview. So to that end, I want to thank Village President Jim Patterson, his fellow trustees, as well as the various board and commission members, our first responders, Matt Formica and the village staff, and all who really make this machine work the way it does. And of course, Glenview Park District for hosting this event this morning. As Karen mentioned, my name is Jeff Teleke, and I've lived and worked in Glenview most of my life. As part of Wintrust Community Banks, we have a couple of banks in town. One is Northview Bank and Trust, which is up on Waukegan Road, just south of Willow. We opened that 25 years ago, which seems much shorter than that, but and then in 2015 we opened Glenview Bank and Trust right in front of the Mariano's grocery store at Gulf Road. Like many of you, we work hard in running our business, and we're proud to have people on our team who share the belief that one has to give back to the community. In that spirit, we do what we can to be involved with local service clubs, organizations, social service agencies, schools, and we of course provide some financial support because it's generally the right thing to do. So there's my little commercial, I suppose. From a personal standpoint, I think it's really a genuine pleasure to live and work in the same community where I grew up. My family's here, and I think a lot of you maybe share that same sentiment. So welcome. Thank you for coming out this morning. And with that, I'm going to turn over to Mike Moylan. Mike runs our Glenview Bank and Trust facility, and he's going to talk about the Chamber's Win with the Bear program. So, Mike.
Thank you, Jeff, very much for the kind words, and thank you for your leadership here with Wintrust. It's people like Jeff and the team over here, and Carolina, who's passing out some flyers that you'll all get, that make it a whole lot of fun to work for Wintrust. So I also wanted to thank Betsy Bear and the Chamber. You guys are fantastic. We're very happy to sponsor this event, and we're also very happy to sponsor an event that I'm coming out to talk to you guys about today that's going to impact the community. This is now our 4th year of doing a Win with the Bear Shop Local campaign. As a community bank, one of our initiatives is to grow the businesses in Glenview. And this is one of the campaigns that we decided to do, how to do it with. In over 50 stores, you're going to see a sign just like the one over there that says Shop Local. You guys may have seen these in the past. I actually hear a lot of people walking in going, oh, that's what that sign's for. Now I'm starting to see it more and more. What that means is each one of those 50 businesses are going to have a raffle box, just like this box right here. If you walk into their store, beginning November 6th and running through December 17th, you're going to have an opportunity to win some great prizes. I can tell you one of the best prizes, I think, is right here at Glenview Bank and Trust or Northview Bank and Trust. And as you get these flyers, you'll see that. It's a $300 gift card to Apt Electronics. So who in this room wouldn't like that, right? Today's technological age. Other prizes may be other gift cards, gift baskets, tickets to different events, free memberships, lots of cool stuff, 50 different businesses here in Glenview. So walk into a store, look for that sign, walk into that store, drop in your raffle ticket, pick up one of these flyers, tell your friends, tell your family, stop by the other 50 stores and support Glenview. Every time you do a shop local, you do provide additional income to the village of Glenview, which is a great thing. So, with that said, I'd like to introduce our village president for Glenview, Jim Patterson. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Mike. Good morning. This is one of our largest crowds ever. This is kind of nice. I guess before I begin, I'd really like to recognize and acknowledge some of our key legislators that are in the room here. We have our Congressman Brad Schneider from the 10th District. And actually, Brad came to a topic we're going to end up at the end of this, which is the holding track, and he took the time to come and speak on our behalf there. So that was nice. Thank you.
We'll continue to do that.
Good. Oh, excuse me. So, Tim, is this me? And then also we have from Congresswoman Schakowsky, we have Ann Limjoko and Abby Ibuzio. Excuse me, I'm not sure if I said that correctly. And Congresswoman Schakowsky also spoke at our event, so that was very nice. And it's when you get people that come and support the community, those are good things. And so we want to acknowledge that in return. We also have our state rep, Laura Fine, here. And what else do we have? We have our Northfield Township trustee, Shiva. And I can never pronounce her last name. So I'm looking around, and I know I'm going to skip, and I keep looking around to see who else is here that's an elected official. Are there others that are elected that are? Jill Brickman, from a trustee from Northfield Township. Please speak up. I mean, my own board members, if I don't see them, it's hard to recognize them. And the library board, we have a variety of board members here, so thank you. And so, if you look at this event each year, there are a variety. This is flipped back and forth. It's been at the Park Center, it's been at the library. The Chamber has sponsored it with the League of Women Voters, and I thank you all for helping put this together. I do think it's in the best interest of the community, and somehow I end up front and center, but this isn't really about me. This is about the community, and I want to make sure that everyone knows and understands that that's really all this is about. And I think probably one of the best things to see that is probably a good start right here. Lynn?
Glenview has always been on the move. It was the home of Illinois' first and most famous naturalist, Robert Kennicott, whose collecting expeditions took him to the Yukon. For 58 years, the primary training facility for Navy pilots was the Glenview Naval Air Station. And for decades, it has been easy to get from here to there because of the proximity to local expressways, commuter trains, and O'Hare International Airport. Yet Glenview is a place to put down roots. We are a family-oriented community that is welcoming to all. We have walkable, friendly neighborhoods, beautiful natural areas like the Grove, Air Station Prairie, Gallery Park, and Wagner Farm, exceptional schools, and a thriving business community. Glenview was primarily a farming community of 325 when it was incorporated as a village in 1899. Development took off in the 1950s, spurred by the opening of the Edens Expressway, and hasn't stopped since. Today, 46,740 residents live within the village's 13.85 square miles. Half the land is used for residential, with almost 18,000 housing units. A quarter is commercial, industrial, and retail, and a quarter is open space. Altogether, Glenview's property value equates to $2 billion. All the things we love about Glenview didn't happen by accident. Thoughtful planning helped build our community and helps manage change. Infrastructure is maintained and kept up to standards. Fiscally responsible practices keep service levels high. Overseeing local government is a 7-member village board through a council-manager form of government. The village president and 6 trustees, elected at large for 4-year terms, appoint members of various permanent advisory commissions. The village manager hired by the board leads 6 departments with a combined staff of almost 300 full and part-time employees. This team runs a cost-effective operation with a focus on results and great customer service. guided by an annual budget that addresses infrastructure needs and sets initiative and service priorities while minimizing the financial burden on Glenview taxpayers. "36% of Glenview's revenues comes from sales taxes and almost 18% from property taxes. Glenview receives about 7% of a property owner's total tax bill. Other revenues come from utility taxes, state income taxes, building permit fees, water and sewer charges, and federal and state grants. More than half of village expenses go toward day-to-day operations like fire protection, police services, ambulance operations, snow removal, street maintenance, and building inspections. These core operating expenses are grouped together into the corporate fund. An annual capital improvement program covers road resurfacing and reconstruction, and stormwater and sanitary sewer upgrades. Another portion goes towards providing water and sewer service. The village's budget maintains Glenview's strong financial position because expenditures are controlled through disciplined spending and cost reduction. The budget is structurally balanced and spending is sustainable because ongoing expenditures support ongoing revenues, while one-time expenses are paid with one-time revenues. Continuing efforts to manage public dollars responsibly include working with other governments to share costs, entering into public-private partnerships to control personnel costs, and aggressively seeking funding for capital projects through regional, state, and federal grants. Through economic booms and more challenging times, the Village of Glenview has maintained its reputation as a great place to raise a family and do business. The best schools, parks, and natural resources, combined with solid infrastructure, careful planning, and sound fiscal policies, have helped ensure that Glenview continues to be a vibrant, growing community.
A production of GVTV. And I will tell you, that's my third time seeing that, and each time I like it more. So I believe we'll have that on both our website as well as probably on YouTube. A lot of these things end up there. So I will tell you that our staff is very professional in how they do things, as you can see by that one piece of work. We have in the room today, we have our village manager, Matt Formica. We have our deputy village manager, Don Owen. We also have our director of development, Jeff Brady. We have our director of communication, Lynn Stiefel, who's been driving all these things. We also have Tim Davidson, who's with GVTV, who's actually helped lead that project and put that together. And then we have our deputy police chief, Kathy Sostak, and Officer Joel Detlefs, who I don't know if you've seen some things of late, but I've seen a variety of communications that we've had, some little videos, how he has been greeting students at various schools on Fridays, and that's worked out really well, and it's gotten some notoriety of its own. So I think that's, I don't take these things lightly because our staff is what makes this work. And all these, the product of what we get, whether it's up here, I do believe it's a terrific value, and I think it's important as we work through this that you look at. So we have a board, 6 board members that you just heard about, and every one of those trustees is elected and has significant input, and I simply preside over it, but I think their contributions are important, and as we go through this, you'll get to see some of that. So what are some of our accomplishments in 2018? Let's look at some of the things that you see the most of. These are major capital projects. So 1.5 miles, not that, I mean, you've walked 1.5 miles. So we reconstructed it. That means they dug it up and they replaced the utilities underneath it for $8 million. That's significant. We look at things as most of these things, we believe they'll last about 60 years when it gets to the infrastructure. Roads are a little bit less, but that's an important thing that we try to keep on top of, and we'll talk about different pieces of it. as we go through it. 3.5 miles of, 3.25 miles of roads that we resurfaced, and then other improvements, specific projects, dues, top lane. I don't know if any of you live in those particular areas, but if you do, they're significant projects. Crestwood, another 2.3 million. And so you look at these and you're like, these numbers kind of add up, which we're going to get to in a few minutes. And then sometimes we take the roads from concrete to asphalt, and you say, well, why do you do that? And part of that is because we want the ability to get back in there. Concrete, if there's pipes underneath there and you have to tear it up, it takes longer to cut it up. It takes, it's just a harder product to work with, and we're going to go back and redo it, we believe, in some period of time, 20, 40, and 60 years usually. But it's an important thing that we make sure that the utilities work, and so that's big. You know, if they come and dig a hole in your street, you'll suddenly see why. Why do we want to be able to get there? Because if there's a water leak, you want them to be able to get in pretty quick. So we looked at the Glen in particular. The Glen is part of the TIF, and we really haven't really spoken about the TIF the last couple of years here. It was significant a number of years back. It comes to an end probably in 2022, 2023. The main stem roads, the primary roads, were originally paved in order to get the work done. We decided that the board made a decision that we needed to repave them and redo them before we turn it over. So what does that mean? There's a transition period where the TIF will shut down and all of these roads and things become a product of the budget of the village of Glenview. And so you want to give it to the village in good shape. So it's kind of a balance, and if you want to know more about that, well, I don't want to delve into it too far, but we have people that'll give you a thorough explanation, or I will, if you'd like. Stormwater is pretty significant as well, and you know, this town, a number of years back, a lot of people referred to this as Frog Town. There was a purpose for that. It was kind of wet, and there are different projects that we have worked on over the years. This is one that's probably a little bit more prominent, once again, if you live in this particular area. And this one was done with an intergovernmental agreement with the Park District. By the way, we have a Park District trustee in the back of the room, Commissioner Dave Dillon, so I apologize for not recognizing him before as another elected official. But the Park District has been a good partner in different projects. A couple of years back, we talked about the fact that they helped us spread some stormwater over the golf course when they redid the public golf course. And here is, once again, Wagner Farm Overland Drainage. It's kind of like, how do we take it, excuse me, out of their backyards? How do we take it out of your basements, out of the streets, and move it? And where can we put it where it is less imposing and yet will still go away? And we want to try to keep it green, if you will. So, and then Tall Tree was a bigger project. That was a culvert in particular, as well as Blackthorn. And then this project is, if you drive Lake Street at all, just east of Wagner Road, everyone thinks this is the village. Well, this is multi-jurisdictional, if you will, in that the state, in trying to protect us, the state closed the bridge and said it wasn't safe. But Lake Street is actually owned by the county. So the state brought it to our attention, and the county said, okay, it wasn't quite at the top of the list, and so the county made it a priority to bring it to the top of the list. They had to go out and get someone to inspect it. They had to get the engineering done, then they had to draw it up and then contract it, and it is actually being worked on. You can't see a lot of the work right now because much of it is actually below the street in the support structure. But we expect that that'll be done sometime in January, and right now it's one lane each way. This is, I think some of you are more tuned in than others, the fact that Ace Hardware, somewhere around, Best Hardware, jeepers. Best Hardware, somewhere around 2010, they decided not to keep the store open. And when they closed the store, they left it for a couple of years, and their intention was to sell it. The economy wasn't the best, and so it kind of sat there, and it wasn't rented, and it kind of, we had a variety of people that said, what do we want to do with it? Are you going to do something with it? And the asking price was probably more than we expected, and it sat there, and it sat there, and it sat there for 7 years. And then the board made a decision, and the board made a decision that we were going to buy it, but we thought the odds were pretty good we would probably end up losing money, which in fact we did, knowingly. And how do you say, why do you do that? Well, the easy decision is to let it go. The hard decision is to say, we're going to reinvest in the community. And so we looked at that as an opportunity to bring something to the downtown area that was a reinvestment in the community. And at this point, the Drake Group is building 72 apartments and up to 5 floors. So it gives you, it's a comparable height to the other buildings in the downtown. And it puts it right near the train station, so it should be quite convenient. Also, we have been talking about this for a long time, since about 2010 as well. There used to be a restaurant there called Maddie's. Many of you have been here in town for a long time, and you would recall that. Some of the people that have been here said, what was Maddie's? So if they're newer, you know they haven't been around very long. And we expect Culver's. There have been a couple of different challenges, and the challenges were a function of just trying to, between the land and the developer, they were just trying to figure out how to get that together. There's also, if you know where Target is, over on Old Willow Road there, between Willow Road and Old Willow Road. So on the Old Willow, you probably, some of you that have been here a long time would remember Carrot Top. So over in that area is where the Goodwill store will be. And so you look at these projects, and these are pretty significant projects. We're running out of space from an infill perspective, but they're still pretty decent projects. And then the Fertility Center of Illinois is another 30,000 square feet that's in the Glen, right? So if you say things keep getting filled in. And then the Western Golf Association is also on Patriot there in the Glen. And that's, they're a pretty significant contributor they're gonna bring things that are a different type of balance into the community. So that's 20,000 square feet, and I think if any of you play golf, you would know about Evans Scholars. I knew about it because I was a caddy when I was younger, but I always wondered where it was, and it was in the town of Golf, and then they're moving over here to Glenview. From a residential perspective, we have Park Place, which is basically where the old Village Hall was, right on Glenview Road. I don't know how I'm doing this today. This was on Waukegan Road. I don't know. Excuse me. It's Park Place in Glenview. And, and 1225 Waukegan is where we went for Village Hall for board meetings since 2000. I don't know how I mix some of these things up, but 14 row homes and 8 small single-family residences, and 4 duplexes. So if you look at that, the building has come up out of the ground. You can see it right now. It's starting to take shape. It will influence the area, and you say, well, why is it built there next to the fire station? And that's part of the downtown plan, is how do we bring more people into the downtown, and how do you do things that will help support the downtown in a way that is, there's an expression that came out a number of years back. It's not how dense is it, it's how you make it dense. And so there's a balance in saying, this is a very, if you think about what's going on, we have some significant changes happening in the community. If you've been here a long time, this community is evolving. It is just kind of coming through little by little. And some people really like it, and we get a lot of compliments, and some people are really torn with what is happening and why is it so different. And so if you want to talk about that, I'm happy to meet with you. Our board members are happy to meet with you. It's just kind of how things are working, and I would tell you, all in all, it's actually very positive. This is also some other things that are happening. We have a significant number of requests for senior housing. I don't know why, the graying of America, as you could refer to it, but little by little, they really like Glenview. And they like Glenview because if you go east of here, they can't draw. You know, if you're in Wilmette or Winnetka or somewhere, they don't have anything to draw from east of there. But Glenview is kind of in the center of a radius that draws from the east of us and the west of us and north and south, because our proximity, according to the developers, is perfectly located. And so our challenge is the balance of how do we allow people to develop and build their property, and what is an appropriate use, and what fits in the community, and how much is enough and how much is too much. And I will tell you that it's a very gray situation that we're always trying to wrestle with, and I am open to your input and thoughts on how we do that. But so right now we have a TRIA senior living, which is 83 units. And if you know where Wendy's is, over on Lake in Milwaukee, this is just west of there. And then Avador, 169, that's going to be down just south of McDonald's on Waukegan Road. And so some people are torn with, why is the building the size it is? There are people that feel it's great, and there are other people that say, wait, that's too big. Part of the reason that the building is that size is they believe, the developers believe, that you need a certain critical mass in order to put, to have a doorman, or to have a health facility, or to have different things, and be able to amortize those costs and keep it somewhat reasonably priced. And so that's how the building gets to be that size. I'll also tell you that that particular land use right there are different people that have different opinions. And some say, well, why wasn't something else there? There had been a Saturn dealer there. There had been a variety of other dealers there over time. And it's a use that the land has been left kind of vacant. And was it going to become residential? We have to balance each of these things and say, what works for you? What works for the community? So Amtrak has some interesting plans that aren't necessarily 100% in the best interest of the community of Glenview. Now, there are some parts that do make sense. They would like to have another couple of stops here. So you say, how many times a day are they here right now? And I believe they're here, is it 7 times a day? So, and that means 7 in and 7 out. So they actually stop the train here 14 times, and the train stops at the downtown Glenview station. So what does the village want to do? In a perfect world, the village would move that to the North Glen station. Why? Because when it stops downtown right now, it holds across it blocks the intersection, and it keeps the traffic from going across Glenview Road for an extended period of time. A Metro train pulls in, people get on, people get off, and it goes right away. A Metro train is relatively quick. An Amtrak train is a longer stop, and actually it could come all the way from the West Coast and come through and stops in Glenview. I don't know how much you know about this, but there's only one stop today between Wisconsin and downtown Chicago, and it happens to be Glenview, and it's been in Glenview for many years. Lake Forest would like to have a stop as well. That is still in the works and has been for years. There are other interests in this particular track. Part of it is the railroads were originally built in this country by freight. And the freight trains there's something called the FRA, the Federal Railroad Administration, and they have significant presence and weight in Washington. And so we try to get them to understand what we think our concerns are. What they would like to do is there are multiple freight trains, freight lines that come through the community. Which one of those ones and how the tracks get sorted out, I don't know that that's necessarily important. What is important is that they want to park a freight train, which today is about 10,000 feet. So a mile, 5,300, right? So they want to park a 2-mile freight train in the village of Glenview, south of Techney Road, that would go all the way past, and if you know where West Lake is, over by GBS, it would cross there, and they have even considered making it 15,000 feet or 3 miles. They've talked about making it longer. You say, wait a minute, how can a train be that long? Well, what they figured out is right behind the engine, you have a car, and there's a coupling. Well, that coupling can only handle so many cars before it breaks. They figured out if they put another engine at the back end of the train, they can make the train longer. And if they put another engine in the middle of the train, they can make the train even longer. So now they have one guy, maybe one at each end. At the moment, they only have one guy driving it. But if they have an engineer, but if they have someone at the other end as well, that's a long train that they can't necessarily see what's going on. And I don't know if you know, but recently, I believe was it Barrington, that they had a train that had a problem, and it stopped for a couple hours. And it blocked all 3 ways to get across the track. They had to drive. There happened to be an issue where first responders needed to get across the track. They had to drive around to the next town to get across the track. So we have a significant concern, not just because of blocking Westlake Avenue, but also a parked freight train makes a ton of noise when it stops and makes a ton of noise when it gets underway, and it takes a long time to get up to speed. If you think about a couple-mile train starting from a dead stop and trying to get moving. While it's parked, the engine, diesel engines, are running. They never shut those off. So they're running and going to provide all kinds of environmental issues. Why is it not more so when it's sitting there? Because it's sitting there. It's not just passing through. It is parked sitting there. We have enough concern that we have a variety of people in the room that are part of something called the Action Committee. And the Action Committee, I know that Bill Attia is in the room. I know that Jerry Deutsch is here. Jim Martin is here. Chuck Balling is here. I think I saw Monica Garvey, Michael Mazie, Greg Billy, Dave Rahia. Each of them, Carrie Cummings, I don't know if she's here today, but each of them are a part of this community and a part of this committee. So they know and understand and comprehend what this project's all about, and so they're working hard to figure out how to offset it. This tells you a little bit about the fact that we have had some cooperation from IDOT. We have had some cooperation from, this project actually came to be under WISDOT, Wisconsin DOT. It didn't even come to life under IDOT. It started with WISDOT. So you see they have a different interest. So whether it's to send 14, which they would like to double the amount of trips through town on Amtrak, which is passenger, which we're good with. Incremental passenger stops would be fine. It's the freight that gets parked here that we have an issue with. So there has been initial public comment, and then IDOT responded in September, committing to take some time to more thoroughly study freight impacts and consider alternatives to the holding track. So there is something called an ESA, and then there's something called an EIS. And we would like them to do the more thorough study, the environmental impact study. Whether we'll get there, we don't know. But they have been willing to listen to our requests. And as you can see, I took a few minutes. That's kind of a big deal. So what is their plan? or what is our plan? So the village board thought it was significant enough that the village board said, we'll spend up to $400,000. You're like, wow, really? So we went and we had a study done. I shouldn't say we, the staff helped coach us through this. But there was a study done that said, how do we provide some alternatives? What are they really trying to accomplish, and what can we help? What can we do? How can we provide any other solution than this? And we have continued with, you've seen signs all the way around town, so that's part of communication. The TEMS, T-E-M-S, is the study that we did. And then we continue, as you see, that the word there, lobbying, well, I don't know whether you want to call it lobbying or not, but to have Laura Fine, to have Brad Schneider, and to have Jan Schakowsky, to have them willing to stand up and support our cause. I think that's friends. I think it's a relationship. I think it is some recognition of what our plight is. And so it's important. We're grateful for their support. And litigation is something that we have been debating. The challenge with litigation is, when does it begin and when does it end? And by the way, who are we fighting and how expensive is it? Because it could be significant. So we're torn, but we're trying to continue to stay on top of it from a homework perspective to make sure that the board is tuned in to what our options are, and staff has been keeping us informed on a regular basis. I spoke briefly about Citizens for Action and that noholdingtrack.com. They have, from a grassroots perspective, been extremely active. They are, anyone that you know that wants to get involved, please send them their way. They are open arms and willing to take as many people as possible. Don, how many letters or petitions or things did we send in? Thousands. Multiple thousands. And so we have taken them to Washington, and we have addressed them locally, and we've tried to do as many things as we possibly can to say, how do we make this thing, how do we impede it? How do we stop it? And in a perfect world, I don't think you're ever going to stop the railroad. The question is, how do we make it more manageable? And that's really about it. 2019. So you heard the term in the video that we are in structural balance. And that means that we try to make sure that any revenue that we have coming in is what we use for ongoing costs. And then you've seen some reference to some grants and different things, and we try to use those whenever possible, and we try to keep anything that's a one-time cost. So we really look at stormwater, any of those big, gigantic stormwater projects, we see that more as one time. And we try to figure out, how do we get a grant, or how do we put one-time dollars that we don't see as an ongoing stream, how do we apply them to those types of projects? So in $21.5 million committed to stormwater, roads, and other capital improvements. And one of the challenges that our Rep. Laura Fine here is dealing with is down in Springfield. The state has, they keep looking at every way they can to deal with how do they close their budget. And so some communities have been more fortunate than others, and we've been pretty fortunate. But at the same time, there has been some of our revenue that has been redirected and that has not come back. It's not, a couple $100,000 here and there. I think it was $400,000 in aggregate over 2 years. Does that sound right? And where do we get our money? So you heard that we get it from sales tax and we get it from property tax. But if we have a shortage of revenue, the most reliable source of revenue, believe it or not, is the property tax. And so we take that pretty seriously. We don't necessarily want to increase it, but we do want to keep everything that we plan for our projects and our revenue in sync. So this talks about, well, here, there's the 366,000. And then we also have had 3 public workshops, and then we will have our public hearing on November 20th, and then we'll actually adopt our budget on December 4th. This next year, we have 3 miles of road construction, so kind of similar to last year in dollars. Last year it was 8.1, right, this year? And we're going to get a little more because it's different projects and resurfacing. And then 13,000 feet of water main replacement. You think about how many miles we have, that's relatively small piece. And then a retaining wall replacement on the north branch of the Chicago River. Sometimes you read that whole, gets pretty long. It's like, what river, where? And then downtown parking improvements. If you recall, when we made a deal on the Best Hardware, we talked about spending $1 million to make sure, or setting aside $1 million to make sure that we would have additional parking that made sense in the downtown. And then there's some grant-funded projects. So $1 million of 750. So North Glen Oak Acres, 3/4 of that project is going to come from the Army Corps of Engineers. So I say thank you to the Army Corps of Engineers, but I also say thank you to staff for digging through and figuring out what makes sense and how can we go after some of those funds that are available. So even though they're there, you have to have someone that will mine the opportunities and figure out how do we take advantage of that. Shared use path construction with Northbrook. So another $1.25 million there, of which you can see some funding, both in ITEP and some shared expense there in Northbrook, right? So communities working together. And then east of Harms, so you all pay some part of your tax to the MWRD, Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. And so this is some of that money coming back. And this is $1.5 million going to Wilmette and Carry-Ons, which is south of Lake and east of Harms. And then state and county projects. So Willow Road, this project's been on the books a long time, but we believe it's actually going to come to fruition next year. So Willow Road is a state road, but they will widen the bridge that goes over Lehigh and Patriot, and more importantly, they're going to reconstruct it. So that is not really our project. We had a project that worked in front of it this year, which was moving some water mains prior to that, and that we've already done that in anticipation of this. And then Sanders Road is that's a Cook County road, and we think we could have a small piece of that. But these are roads that are right around us that affect you if you're driving in that part of the community. So we just wanted to point them out and let you know where we think it is. And if you know, over by on Landwehr, next door to the ice rink, so last March, I believe, the Park District had a referendum that had to do with redoing the ice center. And we have this building, that fire station there on Landwehr, was actually built in a fire district that the village absorbed. We didn't actually build that fire station. And it's at a point where it's beyond its useful life, and we have to decide what is the price of repairing it versus the price of replacing it. And it made more sense to replace it, and so that's coming up. As you can see, constructed in 1972. And it'll take a year to get that done, so we're working on that. I don't actually know where we're going to house the first responders during that time. Are we going to knock it down first? I guess I should have asked that question before I got up here. But I know I have someone that can answer that for me, so I feel good. And then if you recall, a couple of years back, there was something called the Comprehensive Plan. The Comprehensive Plan is usually done about every 10 years. And in the Comprehensive Plan, you try to say what makes sense for the future of the community. Where do we want things to be? How should it develop? And it's kind of a roadmap, if you will. And then within the Comprehensive Plan, there was some discussion about incorporating some gateway or wayfinding. So, what should the entrance, if you come across Willow Road and you get to the village of Glenview, or you're coming across up Waukegan or at some point, what should it look like when you're at the gateway to the village of Glenview? And so there's a committee that's working on that, and this is part of what has come out of it. The board named a committee. The village hired a consultant that said, because we wanted a professional aspect, that said, give us some choices, and then we can narrow it down a bit. And it's still cooking along. It's not concluded, but if you have some input, we're open to that. And this gives you some of the examples that we're working on. And you probably recognize that bridge over in Gallery Park. Kind of makes sense, right? So, and then, so we also had we've had something called, so if there was a problem, let's say the water went out, or when we had a storm that took out a part of the power or different parts. So there's a product that we used to refer to affectionately as Reverse 911. And what that was is we could go to some software and look at a particular map and say, let's call or contact everybody in that area, in those blocks or multiple blocks, and tell them whatever it is that we need to inform them about. We're going to turn off your power, or we have a solution that says, since your power's out, you could do this. And you could register for that, and we've had that for a couple of years. So I think most of you are aware that the Village of Glenview actually does dispatch, so police and fire. Someone calls 911 from multiple towns, whether it's Niles or Morton Grove or Winnetka or Highland Park. If they dial 911, it comes into our police department for our dispatch center. So it's a service that we provide to other communities. And as a result, we probably have some of the most up-to-date software and tools that we take advantage of and we can share with our other communities. So we have tools that make life easy for the first responder to say, you all have a phone that you can see where something is, a street is in another town, and so we have the ability to do that, and we just send someone who is a policeman or a fireman from that town to respond to that particular event. So part of what the next evolution is something called Smart 911. And so that gives you the opportunity to go in, and I've already done it myself. You can go in, log into Smart 911, and you can put your information in there so that if you were to call from your phone, they would know that you're calling and who it is. You can put your picture there if you want, or you don't have to. You can put, ideally, they would want your cell phone and your email. What you put beyond that is up to you. If you have some life-threatening illness you want them to know about, you can put that there. If you don't want anything because you're concerned about all of your HIPAA, they respect that. It's not required. This is trying to provide a solution that says, how do we get someone there as quick as possible and provide as much data as possible? So it'll be on our website. It's in our upcoming newsletter. It'll be, but there are only a couple of communities that have it right now. And so we're on the very early, when you get to the Smart 911 website, you'll see the other choices that you have. You can be notified in Cook County. You can be notified, what's the town way south that was there? It's not Blue Island. It's, when I went to the website, there's a town on the other, it's way south, and they have that as well. And you can see that. So And I'm not advocating you get notified in case you're there, but, and so it allows you to incorporate whatever you want to do, but we keep trying to put information out, and one of our challenges is how do we communicate to people and how do we provide as much as possible of the best information to you. So do you sign up for, do you know about Glenview? So it gives you a quick little one-pager that comes out each week and lets you know things that are going on in Glenview. It's your option to sign up for it or not. We have found in our various surveys over time that people really prefer the newsletter the best because they can read that wherever they are. But I would say it may become generational. I don't know. But I think this is kind of new and kind of neat and worth at least looking into. So how do you keep up with us? We want to be as transparent as possible. We want to give you exposure to, I mean, it's really your money, right? It's the community's money that we're stewards for. We have a fiduciary obligation to manage it in an appropriate way. So we want to make sure that you have access to everything that we're doing, and these are some of the tools. Yes, you can go to the website. It works, it's friendly, but websites, unless you're used to it, they're not as friendly. You may or may not think it is. Everyone has their own sense of how that works. Glenview, I think, probably makes a lot of sense. Twitter, if you're a Twitter person and you tweet, we give you things. Facebook, if you want to go there, there are different demographics that some people are more interested in each of these, and so we try to provide a vehicle that we think that you'll be most interested in. There is a mobile app, goes on your phone, you can get an update from that. And then, the Village of Glenview report mailed 10 times a year, that is what we find people read the most. And then the resident handbook or GBTV if you want to go online and you can watch this or that video you just saw or some of the other things. This is, I had told you earlier that our board is important. Each and every one of them are elected individually. They take this job very seriously. We talk about different things. There are rules. We cannot talk, any more than two of us cannot get together and talk about anything that is on our agenda, or it would be a quorum of a quorum and it would be inappropriate. And so we don't do that. We make a point of, I may talk to one of them or two of them or three of them about, do you know or understand how this works? But most of that, I would say, really falls to our manager Matt Formica, or our deputy manager Don Owen, and they interact with each of the trustees on a pretty regular basis. As our board reports come out, usually they come out on a Friday for a meeting that's on the following Tuesday. And if you have questions about any of that, at this point, I would ask what questions you have. So, yes? We have a microphone, I believe, right here, right behind you. Mm-hmm.
This is a question that a friend of mine asked me to bring.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm just going to read her question, okay?
Mm-hmm.
One simple step to reduce climate changing emissions is to convert from dirty, noisy, dangerous gas-powered leaf blowers to cleaner, quieter electric blowers. Edmunds, the car review site, calculates that gasoline-powered leaf blowers give off emissions in 1/2 hour equivalent to driving a pickup truck 3,800 miles. But gas-powered leaf blowers do more harm than just adding to climate change. They also damage hearing, spread plant disease, and add oily particulate in the air, which is dangerous to children and older residents, especially those with asthma and other breathing problems. The sound of them raises blood pressure and can cause anxiety and sleep disturbance. Do village or park district crews currently use gas-powered leaf blowers? And if so, will the board or the park district require their crews to convert to the quieter, cleaner electric blowers? And then there's a follow-up question. So, will the village board consider limiting gas-powered leaf blower use by residents and lawn care services, as Evanston, Highland Park, Wilmette, and Winnetka already do? Evanston bans use May the 16th to September 29th. Winnetka bans use June 1st to October 1st. And Wilmette and Highland Park ban use May 15th to October 1. So you of course, you'll have to talk to the rest of the board. This is maybe new input for you, but I'm just bringing it to your attention, and that was from Mary Mundy. Thank you.
Actually, that's the first that I've ever heard of this. It is. So I do know that people are concerned about blowers, and I've heard that, but I've always heard it in passing. I've never heard, I didn't know that those communities did anything to quiet them down. And so you're asking, would we do that from a jurisdiction perspective? I don't know if the village uses them or not. So we have parts of the village, much of our landscaping we actually contract out. So I would imagine they probably do, because most of the landscapers typically do, right? And would they use electric or not? I would really have to go back to staff and do some homework. And then part two of that would be, did those communities ban it simply for their public entities, or did they ban it for the whole community?
Well, this is her question, not mine, and I didn't know to ask that question.
Yeah, interesting. Okay. I wonder if that increases the cost of landscaping or keeps it the same.
Well, it clearly incur a capital expense in replacing existing functioning equipment with,
Right.
there's a capital expense there for them, sure.
Yes.
There you go.
Interesting. Yes.
Morning, Jim.
Hi, John.
John Hedrick from Raleigh Road, and thanks for the great overview this morning. I'm working with a Friends of Downtown group, and some of our committee members are here. And we've been working with staff.
The reason we ask you to use the microphone is mostly because it's recorded.
You want me to start over? Just-
So you don't have to face it, but at least they can hear what you're saying. So
I'm not sure it's on.
it's on.
Okay, good. As I was saying, working with a group, Friends of Downtown, Glenview.
Please
And-
hold it up. Yes, thank you.
And some of our committee members are here. As I said, the question for you, Jim, is from a board perspective, you mentioned the comp plan. It was good to hear about some of the progress with Best Hardware and wayfinding. Can you say anything more about the economic development goals of the plan, and particularly anything on recruiting new businesses or working with the some vacant storefronts downtown?
So one of the challenges we have in recruiting businesses is trying to be fair. So if we have so part of the discussion, in particular at the Best site, was why don't we consider subsidizing a restaurant to go there? So Trustee White suggested that there were 10 restaurants within a couple of blocks of that particular site, and said, how do we subsidize this one at the expense of every other restaurant that's there? And so, and I only pick on that because that was the most recent type of business that it doesn't matter which business it is. We have to figure out, how do we do something that is, that we don't have to, we don't either impose some kind of pain on the incumbent businesses of similar, or that we figure out, if we're going to do something to augment or provide an incentive, how do we treat the business owners that have, of like kind, that have been there for years? How do we treat them the same way? So there's kind of a balance that we have not found an answer to. Part of what we learned is that we have a decent amount of open space. We had 35,000 square feet of open space in the downtown area. That was stated in our board meeting. And we were trying to figure out how do we keep it lively and keep, if you look at our business districts, we have the Glen Town Center, we have, you have Waukegan Road corridor, Milwaukee Avenue corridor, you have Willow Road. Glenview Road isn't to be taken lightly. I mean, it's important, it's a balance, and we don't yet have the combination. We are open to suggestions. I don't know that that's the answer you're looking for, and this is Deputy Village Manager Don Owen, and he can add something as well.
Just one final comment. The Village of Glenview is going to be developing an economic development strategic plan in 2019. So those types of comments are really important to us, and we're going to encourage public input during that process. So I just want to make sure you knew that that is one of our 2019 initiatives.
And that's really what I was interested in, is progress on that. I know there's no magic answer, but for the record, I'm talking about not supporting, not in terms of just financial support, but this type of strategic analysis.
And part of that was why did we bring more people to both 1225 Waukegan as well as to the best site, right? How do we bring a few more people there that we believe will help support those parts of town? So those are part of the equation. So creating more demand in an environment that we think makes sense. Yes, ma'am. Sherry? That's all right. Thank you.
As you know, the 2015 Affordable Housing Plan is part of the comprehensive plan for the village, and that plan is scheduled to be updated in 2018. Does the village have any plans to include public input in the revision to that plan, or to create the Housing Commission, which the League asked that the village create back in June?
So you threw me with, it's going to be updated in 2018?
Yes, the plans. Not sure this is working.
Yeah, it is.
The plan itself says that it will be updated in 2018. The Affordable Housing Plan, which was created in 2015.
So I'm aware it was created. I am not, it doesn't come to mind the updated in 2018, but we will get back to you on that. And as far as public input, absolutely. We would take public input on whatever we were doing.
What about creating the Housing Commission, which the League petitioned the board to create?
Would we create a housing commission?
Or a committee?
Or committee? We would have to talk about that at a board level, but we have not, yes, there are, I recall the request at the time, in particular, I think it was around the time of Bess, but that was kind of an aside from what our project was at the time. So, to be honest with you, we really haven't talked about it, but we can. So, Yes, ma'am. Lynn's going to come around.
Could you give us the information on the endorsement for candidates for trustees roles process, like when it takes place, where it takes place, and what registered voters in Glenview need to do to participate in that process, please?
So, I don't have the dates in front of me, but here's what I can tell you. Okay, it is a public process that I think you can petition right now, because I believe there's someone out there carrying petitions around as we speak who is trying to get on the ballot. So you could petition now, and then I believe the first day to turn in your petitions is January 10th or thereabouts, and the last day is, and all of this is on the county records. I know enough to familiarize myself with it. I don't know the specific dates. But It's a public process. You can go to, you would turn them in at Village Hall, right where there's a woman named Lisa Goodwin who sits right there, and you would turn in your petitions there to be on the ballot. Yes?
My question isn't how to get on the ballot, it's how does the endorsement process work?
Endorsement process.
Because there's a group that seems to get endorsed, and then there are other candidates.
So there are, I think everyone knows that, but I don't know if you're not paying attention, that if you were a party, you would go on that one part of the ballot, and if you're an individual, you would go on another part of the ballot. But that in reality, everyone is elected individually. So it's the three highest vote, the people that achieve the three highest number of votes would be the people that would be selected to be on the board. As far as the endorsement part of that, there is a letter that was sent out recently that said if you wanted to apply, you could respond and with a resume, and I read it a couple of days ago, and it said you could turn in a resume and apply to be in front of the group. There's a group of people that typically get together, and they try to get balance from different parts of the community, and they try to understand what they think makes the most sense for, do we need someone with more financial acumen, or do we need someone with a different sense of balance on the board? And that group gets together, and then they select out of the people that interview in front of them. So if 5 people interview, and there's 3 seats, they would pick 3. The letter says that whether the you're an incumbent trustee or not, you would still be required to interview.
So the letter goes only to people who are running, or,
I believe it was in the newspaper.
How people get to be part of this little group that decides who will be endorsed? And what public input is there to that group?
I would say the letter is in the newspaper somewhere, I believe. Is it in the, I think it was in the Lantern or the announcements, one of them. I'm not sure which one, but if you respond to that, I'm sure they will come back to you. Jane?
Hi. I have a question about is it the Avador Senior Center that's planned on Waukegan Road? I participated in one of the group discussions about the impact of that on existing, there's a lot of condos and homes on that stretch of Waukegan Road. And during a majority of the daytime hours, that's a problematic traffic. If you live there and you pull in and out, you have the gas station, you have people coming and going, so if you wait for the light at Glenview Road, or is there a light at Dews, wherever, and then you try to time it with the one on Gulf Road, it can be a problem. I mean, you can wait there. So have they done traffic studies to decide whether there will be another stoplight there? I mean, I know how efficient the one, when we built the library, they added the stoplight there, and it's been quite effective. I see that 169 rental units, if you have even one person in each of those units, but it's more likely you'll have 2, it's going to have a huge impact on the traffic there. I mean, what provision has been made to this point? Have they done studies?
So there are 2 parts to that. Part of that is Waukegan Road is a state road. If there was going to be a light, that would be a decision of IDOT, not of the Village of Glenview. The second part is, yes, there were traffic studies done, multiple traffic studies done, both by the village as well as by the developer. And it was, my recollection is, they said a couple of things. First of all, they didn't expect everyone to go in and out at once. They expected it to be in and out in the course of a day. The other thing is, they really didn't expect it to be full at any one point in time, because they expected that it would probably have a fair number of snowbirds, and it would have people that would come and go. And so they, that was part of the discussion about, how much traffic would be in and out, as well as how much parking there should be, and how much people, in the course of conversation, that there was a tendency to have less vehicles, which speaks to this as a function of either they're getting older and they don't drive as much, or they're not here as much. And so all of that kind of came together, and the traffic study spoke to how many additional cars there would be, and that it was not a significant impact.
Thank you.
Deputy Manager Owen, would you add anything to that?
Yes, for all of our developments, we require the developer to do a traffic study, and then we have an independent traffic study done just to make sure there's no conflict of interest. So both of those studies looked at different ways to improve this traffic. We did change the original proposal from how many turning events you have in that area, whether you can do a turn in or a turn out. And in this case, as Village President Patterson said, is we coordinated to have some shared access between this site and the northern site to make sure that we limited the number of influences on Waukegan Road. So there was some nice improvements through the public process, but it is always important to know that both the developer is required to have a traffic study, and the village does an independent traffic study as part of our normal process.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
There currently is a lack of free meeting space in the village for tax exempts and nonprofits. Is there a way to remediate that issue right now?
So at the moment, are you aware that you can take meeting space in Village Hall?
We've done that before, and we've gotten kicked out because other things took over, and we just couldn't have it. I don't know if they've changed their policy. It's been a problem. We've done it before, and we've got kicked out a couple of times.
I'm surprised, but you could, so I know there's a fair number of meetings that go there. The only reason I believe that we would kick you out is if one of the village commissions or board meetings had to move. That might take precedent. But aside from that, I think that would probably be the only reason that we would impose on you. Aside from that, I know you can get space. I just don't know what the price of it is. It's not free, but I know there is space at both the library as well as the Park Center. I just don't know what the cost to use it is.
Okay,
So both the Park District and the library provide some space. Yes, sir. Brian?
Thank you.
Good morning.
I was just wondering, in the interest of mutual revenue and services provided, would it be wise to start considering some sort of incentives to provide residents an incentive to put some solar panels up and to generate solar energy, in which you guys could sponsor some of the cost in return for cheaper electricity sold back through the grid?
I think that's an interesting idea that we may have staff look into, and I think we need to look at that. So some of the arguments I've heard on the opposite of that is, one, they are not pretty, and two, there's lots of solar panels that are old that they don't know what to do with. That doesn't speak to your request. I think we need to look at that and figure that out. Then the question would be, who's going to save the money? Are we incenting you to save money for you, or are we incenting you to save money for the village? So if we are going to incent someone, why should everyone else pay for you to save for you? And so we need to figure that balance out so that if we're going to consider that we do it in an appropriate way. And there are some people that say it's the green thing to do and we should do things like that, which we're not necessarily opposed to. It's more about trying to figure out, how does it make sense for everybody? So yes, we can put that on our list of things to consider. I have, just like the previous request, we can talk about those. I have not given that any thought before right now. So, other than the comments that I made that I've heard along the way. Yes, ma'am.
I'm concerned about the coal tar sealant ban, that citizens and private businesses don't have enough information to make a good choice. Concerned that there's nothing that I could find on the website, and to wonder if the village would really take this issue at heart and really do a whole lot of informing of the citizens of the danger, the potential danger of coal tar sealants. They come through my neighborhood on a Saturday. Nobody's asking for anything. We don't know how to enforce this. If we have the list that they're supposed to bring, who are we supposed to call? I think it's a pretty big problem, and I'd like to know if the village would be at least putting some information on the website and some other places.
So, we did ban it at the request of the League of Women Voters, and it was discussed. We can easily put more information on the website. You can call 24 hours a day. You can call the police department, and I only say 24 hours a day, meaning Saturday and Sunday, because I don't think anyone's doing this at night. And they would redirect you to a staff member. I don't know how much they know about it. I really, but I would ask that we can have staff put more information on the website. There's always a balance of how much time and effort do you put into any one issue as a function of what is in the interest of the community at large. So prior to the League of Women Voters bringing it to our attention, it wasn't really even on our mind. I mean, there had been 1 or 2 requests, and so this is the first time anyone's brought it up since we voted on it, but I'm happy to have staff look into that further. And if you would like to speak to staff about that specifically, you're welcome to do so. They will meet with you, and if you have some ideas or suggestions, they'll discuss it with you.
Last question.
One last question. And if not, I really thank you for all your time and attention, and Betsy, I thank the Chamber.
Thank you.
And the League, and the library, and the Park District.
And everybody.
But more importantly, thank you to the community. So that's really what makes all of this work. So have a good day.
I did just want to mention that, again, we have our Business Person and Business of the Year award nomination forms in the back if you'd like. And we have Congressman Schneider is here and State Representative Laura Fine is here. Flock to them if you have questions for them as well. Thank you all for coming.